Okay, so let's get started with the next problem. This was the hardest problem that was on the walls. I had to get Kiki's hair. Okay. Let's see. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my negative exponents. Zero exponents. Do I see any? Nope. So next, let's go ahead and get rid of my negative exponents. Okay. We see a negative exponent here, which means this entire thing is going to move down. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewrite that. And also, on the same property, we have an x to the negative 4 right here. That's going to move up. Now, what's in front of it? A negative. There is a negative 1 here. I'm going to leave that down in the denominator when I move that x to the 4th up. So we have an x to the 4th. Okay, and then we have a negative 1 and a y to the 3rd, x to the 2nd, and y to the 4th. And then I'm going to move that entire set of values enclosed by the parentheses down. That negative 4 does not change. You have to keep it the way it is. Okay? And then we have to the 2nd. And all of this to the 4th. Okay? Now that negative 2 changed to a positive 2. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and take care of this parentheses right here. And distribute this 2 in. So I have x to the 4th. Then I have a negative 1, y to the 3rd, x to the 2nd, y to the 4th. And then we have a negative 2 to the 2nd, x to the 6th, and y to the negative 8. Okay? I have another negative exponent. So what am I going to do with that negative exponent? I'm going to move it up. And at the same in the same step, I'm going to also put everything in order. So in the numerator, I have x to the 4th and y to the 8th. Okay, I have a negative 1. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4. Okay, and then I have an x to the 2nd. When I put things in order, I just put it in alphabetical order. X to the 6th, y to the 3rd, and y to the 4th. Okay, now let's go ahead and simplify the numerator. Nothing to simplify, but we can simplify the denominator. So we have x to the 4th and then y to the 8th over negative 4, okay, and then x to the 8th and y to the 7th. All of this to the 4th. Don't forget this to the 4th, okay? Now, since we have the numerator and the denominator simplified, we're going to take what's in the numerator and denominator and simplify between them. Okay, so first we have a negative 4. We can't do anything with that. We have an x to the 4th and an x to the 8th. That's x to the negative 4th. But so that's going to stay down in the denominator. That's how we get rid of that negative. Okay. And then we have a y to the 7th. Basically, when you are subtracting, what you are doing is moving this up. So this becomes y to the 8th, and y, when we move it to the numerator, it becomes to the negative 7. Okay, so that becomes y to the 8 minus 7. That's what we're actually doing, okay, to the y. And then all of this to the 4th. Now, let's go ahead and take the 4th and then distribute it into every single value. So we have y to the 4th, and then negative 4 to the 4th, and x to the 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, so y to the 4th. Okay, so we have negative 4 to the 4th. I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator. That is 256. A negative times a negative times a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, and x to the 16th. And that is my final answer. Good job. It's not that difficult if we just take it step by step. Okay?